I'm Bart Tangier. My family surname goes back to the Channel Islands, part of the United Kingdom. As this makes clear, I do not belong to a culture where arranged marriages are the norm. In fact, the culture I come from does not favor them at all. My parents, however, are the exception to the rule, although in the United States as a whole, arranged marriages are about as common as snake legs. I suppose the fact that my parents are very overbearing and that I was the firstborn and had the classic first child's desire to please and conform made me completely susceptible to fulfilling their expectations. My younger brother and sister were rebellious, but their attitude, on the contrary, made me more eager to please my parents. To make a long story short, my parents decided that it would be wonderful if I married Marina Garth, the eldest daughter of my father's business partner, Vermeer Garth. The Garth family name originated in Surrey, also in the UK, where, again, arranged marriages were almost unheard of. My father and Vermeer had a very successful business called Nemesis Limited, and everyone expected me to take it over someday. Vermeer had 3 daughters and no sons, and none of his daughters were interested in the business in the slightest, and Vermeer constantly referred to me as a really good boy throughout my life, so his expectations of me were the same as my father's. I took all of my college courses and excelled in them, which gave me the background to take over Nemesis LLC. A complete lack of grit of character allowed my parents and the Garths to force me to marry Marina. Marina was not ugly, obese, obnoxious, stupid, pretentious, mean, or cruel. Rather, she was just plain non-existent. I never had a sexual attraction to Marina, and I believed, and it was confirmed, that Marina may have had the lowest libido of anyone who wasn't a nun or eunuch in the entire United States. What she did have in abundance was an even greater desire to please her parents than I had. Shortly before my wedding, I chickened out, and my brother and sister encouraged me to stand up for myself and tell all my parents to get out. When I dated Marina about a month before our wedding, she sensed my anxiety. We were having coffee after watching a movie, and she took my hand. "You're getting nervous, aren't you, Bart? Is it really that obvious?" I grinned. "It's obvious to me since I have the same concerns you do. I know you don't love me and I don't love you, but we're compatible. We've known each other all our lives, and we've never exchanged a harsh word, have we?" she said with a smile. "No, I think not. But don't you long for a knight in shining armor to come and knock you down?" Marina laughed. "Hardly. There's too much drama. I want a comfortable life with close family and compatibility. Passion is overrated. I want to please my parents and yours, and I know you feel the same way. We have a good life ahead of us. Better than 99% of the people in the world, even without romance." "Do you really believe that?" I asked, not skeptically, but just informationally. "Yes, absolutely. Don't cancel the wedding, Bart. I'll be a good wife and mother to our children. I know I'm not Jennifer Lopez or Elizabeth Hurley in looks or passion, but I'll never give you the drama and heartache you can expect from them." She smiled. I doubted Marina was more attracted to me than I was to her. However, I took her advice and did not call off the wedding. We dutifully got married after graduating from college when it was 3 months after my 21st birthday and 2 months before her 21st. To say that both sets of parents were pleased when we went on a week-long honeymoon to Bermuda at their expense would be the understatement of the decade. All 4 of us cried. I almost cried too for a different reason, thinking I'd never find true love. I imagine most newlyweds have passionate sex like minks on their honeymoon. Although Marina and I had sex 3 times on our honeymoon, it was more of a biological function than lust, and certainly not love. There may have been a drop of passion, but no more. Even though we had known each other all our lives, in light of our new relationship, we learned a lot more about each other. Nothing wrong with that. Mostly just boring. Although I didn't have much experience, it was clear that Marina was a bad lover. Despite this, she did have one virtue, that she was actually fertile, and I must have been too. Marina was not in the fertile part of her cycle during our honeymoon, so she delayed taking birth control until she returned from Bermuda. Nevertheless, she did get pregnant during our honeymoon. She went on to have a 2nd and 3rd child by the time we had been married only 3.5 years, despite our infrequent sex. We decided 3 was enough, and since she seemed to get pregnant about 1 out of every 5 times we slept together, we arranged to have her tubes tied after the 3rd. So, although I hadn't yet turned 25, I had a wife and 3 kids. Fortunately, Marina was a good mother, a homebody. Except for the fact that as far as affection was concerned, we were more like cousins than husband and wife. Marina was a good wife. We seldom quarreled and seemed to be in complete accord with our ideas about raising children, namely, giving them all the love we could, but allowing them to become independent, unlike us. I can't say that I loved Marina, but I found that I did have a great capacity to love. I loved my children deeply and unconditionally. My 2 girls and boy gave me a constant glow of happiness, and I enjoyed nothing more than spending time with them, much more than any other activity. One amazing quality that all 3 of them possessed, and what I loved about them, was that they were never subservient or submissive. If subservience and submissiveness are genes, thankfully they didn't inherit them from either Marina or me, and Marina was as happy about it as I was. I was quickly promoted at Nemesis LLC, but not because I was the son and son-in-law of the owners. I had real business acumen. While the job wasn't a perfect job, it wasn't painful or boring either. I was up to date on business systems and practices, so my father and Vermeer began to trust me more and more. By the time I turned 27, for all practical purposes, I was running the firm, although my father and Vermeer were nominal managers. I had tripled the profitability since I started there and was duly rewarded for it. By the age of 28, I was content with a comfortable existence, and my 3 children really made me extremely happy. Because I usually wanted to get home as soon as possible to see my children, and because I did not treat my subordinates as personal servants, I often ate lunch myself at the local deli. I became well known at the deli because of my constant patronage, and also because I gave each employee their $50 cash for Christmas. When I arrived at the deli the Monday after my 28th birthday, I was greeted by Chip, the owner, and I noticed a new female employee. Her name tag said Danica. Danica's appearance threw me off balance. She could be the sister of Polish-born American model Emily Ratajkowski, who was featured in the 2014 and 2015 swimsuit issues of Sports Illustrated, starred in the movie Missing Girl, and is one of the most popular women in internet history. I didn't know what romantic love was before, but I'm pretty sure the feelings I was experiencing were similar to the love at first sight reactions I'd read about. I tried to discreetly look at Danica. I fantasized that she was doing the same thing. I almost swallowed my tongue when she walked over to the small table I was sitting at and asked, "I can put a plate on for you, no?" in a distinctly Eastern European accent. After an awkward pause, I was able to blurt out, "Yes, thank you." She smiled and then walked away with a smooth gait. I had an uncomfortable feeling. I looked at her and saw that I was getting aroused. Probably the first time that had happened when looking at a fully clothed woman. I came to the deli on Tuesday and Wednesday, and both times I chatted, albeit briefly, with Danica, though each time we spoke a few more words to each other than the last time. When I showed up on Thursday, she wasn't there. When Chip came over to my table to chat while I finished my sandwich, after enough small talk that he didn't get too suspicious, I asked, "So, Chip, how's your new employee? What's her name?" "Danica," he said. "Yes, Danica, how is she doing?" "She's a very good employee. Her English is not very good, but she always comes on time and works hard. I like her," he replied. "Yes, she seems really competent. Her only problem is that guys hit on her," he laughed. "How does she work?" I asked with the last bite of sandwich in my mouth, trying to be delicate. "She only works Monday through Wednesday, 5 hours every day. I understand that she's married to some old rich guy, she's bored, and she only works to earn some money for expenses he doesn't know about and to fill the time." I changed the subject to the local college basketball team and then left. Friday and the weekend, I couldn't get Danica out of my head. I was so horny that I had Marina both Friday and Saturday night, twice in a row for the first time in our entire marriage. I'm not sure what Marina thought about it, but she didn't complain and actually participated as much as she could on Saturday night. On Monday, I was at the grocery store again, as was Danica. We socialized a little more that day and increased our socializing each following day. Wednesday night, I screwed Marina. However, to my mild surprise, the next morning Marina smiled crookedly. I realized I had to do something about Danica, so the following Monday I asked her what time she was finishing work and wondered if we could have a cup of coffee together. She smiled broadly, told me she couldn't today, but could on Wednesday. We both parted with wide smiles. On Wednesday, I met Danica outside the grocery store when she left work around 2:30. We went to a nearby bar and had a cup of coffee each. Although her spoken English was poor, we had no problem communicating. Some of the important information I got from her was that her husband of 50 years was 20 years older than she was, and that she was very grateful to him for bringing her to America out of poverty in Moldova and sending $400 a month. A fortune considering that the average per capita income in Moldova is $3,000 a year, to her parents and brother. Her maiden name was Pușcău. She was of Romanian descent and had married young, but her first husband was killed under mysterious circumstances. She had no children. As Danica got ready to leave around 3:30, she said she had to catch a bus in half an hour. "Can I take you home?" "Please, yes," she smiled. "Just the ladies' room first?" "I'll take the car. It's a blue Tesla. Just wait by the entrance." When I picked her up, I entered her home address into my GPS and off we went. After chatting pleasantly during the roughly 20-minute drive, when I pulled up to her house, a mini mansion, I asked if she could meet tomorrow or Friday. "Yes, you pick me up here Friday morning at 10. We need to talk," she said with a smile, then kissed me on the cheek and headed toward the house with a smooth gait. Really great ass, I muttered to myself. Friday didn't go as I had planned. Danica directed me to a local park to a remote parking spot. Then she unbuckled her seatbelt, turned to me, and pulled a piece of paper out of her purse. "I don't speak English very well, plus I'm nervous. So please read it and don't get upset," she said as she handed me the piece of paper. In much better English than her spoken form, it said, "I am excited. I am very grateful to my husband, but he never satisfied me the way my first husband did. I feel a strong attraction to you. Maybe it's even love. I think you feel the same attraction to me. If that's the case, can we sleep together?" I blushed. She looked flushed, too. While I was looking at her, she quickly unbuttoned her blouse, no bra. Her big, firm breasts, looking like Emily Ratajkowski's, stood out like Grand Tetons. Although I was stunned for a few seconds, I never had any doubts about what I was about to do. My arranged marriage was no barrier to sexual gratification, and this woman was the first woman in my entire life who could certainly lead me to sexual nirvana. Despite our sexual excitement, the Tesla seat was too uncomfortable and problematic for true sexual connection. We realized this shortly after we both came. We continued kissing, running our hands over each other for at least the next half hour. At least that's what the clock said. But for me, time stopped. Danica finally pushed me away, pulled her skirt up, buttoned her blouse, and stared at me with big brown doe eyes with a gaze as sultry as a tropical wind. "You mean yes?" She giggled. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes. When can we meet? Unfortunately, I'm busy on weekends." "Monday, 2:30 at the grocery store. You pick me up, find a hotel." She grinned. "It's a date," I smiled. I had no guilt when I picked up Danica at the back door of the deli on Monday. My marriage of convenience hadn't robbed me of my one chance at true romantic love in my life, although the idea that Marina might be interested in seeking sex with another person seemed ridiculous to me. Deep down, I knew I would have no problem if she did, as long as it was love. I couldn't give up the experience of love myself. Danica blossomed into a smile when I took her in my arms, and she jumped up and down like a child, babbling in 2/3 English and 1/3 Romanian, which I didn't understand, of course, as we drove to a nice hotel far enough away from my office and home that there would be no problem. Just in case, I checked in alone and just left a piece of paper with my room number on the lobby desk where she could easily see me leaving it. 5 minutes later, she knocked lightly on the door. We were as hungry panthers. We stripped each other and were in a passionate embrace within 90 seconds of her crossing the threshold. My experience had been limited to 2 other women before Marina, and neither had experienced multiple finishes. This was a new pleasure for me, and I enjoyed it so much before I pounced on her. I don't know what the opposite of a blow-up doll is, maybe a tiger, but whatever it was Danica. She was going up as hard as I was going in and out. Given the diligence of our actions, it didn't take long before I delivered what felt like the biggest load I'd ever delivered in my life. When we came to, we smiled at each other, talking on pillows and playing with each other's equipment. I'd never had a woman ride me in a horsewoman style before. She had either practiced it a lot with her first husband, or it was in her nature, because it only took her a few minutes to bounce up and down. By the time we both came to our senses, it was already 4:30, and we both had to go. As we were walking back to her house with big, shitty grins on our faces, she said, "There's no time on the days I work. Will you pick me up Friday at 9 a.m.? "Absolutely. Give me your cell phone number in case I need to call." "I don't have a cell phone," she replied with a shrug. "I'll give you one on Wednesday," I smiled. I gave Danica a prepaid cell phone on Wednesday when I stopped by the grocery store for lunch. She was familiar with cell phones and didn't need any instructions. While we exchanged smiles on both Tuesday and Wednesday, we tried not to look at each other too much or interact. Friday was the best day of my life. With our need to empty each other urgently, we took our time. I made love for the first time in my life. I couldn't believe that the emotional satisfaction of the act was even more complete than the physical part. Hard to imagine, considering how physically exhaustive it was. We made love, had pillow talk, played with each other before we parted ways at 1 p.m. For 2 months after my love-at-first-sight affair with Danica, I considered myself the luckiest man in the world. I realized that before Danica, I had an underlying resentment towards Marina and my parents related to the arranged marriage. That resentment dissipated within a month. I had a perfectly happy family life, a successful, albeit not exciting, business life, and true love all at the same time. My sexual experience with Danica was beyond my wildest dreams. Consciously or not, we seemed to have tried every realistic position in the Kama Sutra. Danica and I came up with a lot of good ideas, not only about how we could get together to make love, but how we could improve our lives. I got Danica to sign up for English classes and driver's education classes so she could get her driver's license. She talked me into getting a love nest so we wouldn't have to use hotels. I was able to arrange a room that was tucked away in the back of one of our satellite offices that was easy to get into, but only if you knew it was there, provided you had a key and knew the code. Danica turned out to be very bright. Within a year, she spoke perfect English, and after she got her driver's license, she was able to talk her husband into buying her a used car so she could easily get around wherever she wanted to go. I was able to hire some great employees, so my time with Danica in no way diminished the time I spent with the kids, and the business was running smoothly and profitably. We were even able to take a couple overnight excursions together. Those excursions were the highlights of my personal life. Getting a piece of goddess ass in the middle of the night is unparalleled when it comes to sexual satisfaction. Danica and I had been in love for 3 years, 2 months and 18 days. Not that I was keeping track, when life threw us into a whirlwind. Marina was in a car accident. Although her body was not seriously injured, she suffered a subarachnoid brain hemorrhage, thankfully not life-threatening. As the neurologist explained to us, Marina's temporal lobe, hypothalamus, and amygdala were damaged by the hemorrhage. The hypothalamus and amygdala are located in the limbic system, which is deep in the temporal lobes. All of these structures are associated with emotions. Damage to the amygdala and hypothalamus can lead to disruption of normal hormonal functioning, changes in libido, and increased desire for certain sexual behaviors. After explaining everything to both of us, the neurologist asked permission to talk to me privately. He told me that after Marina was released from the hospital, it was likely that her sexual appetite would increase dramatically, and her sexual behavior would also change significantly. He said that there was a possibility that this could cause serious problems if I couldn't meet her needs, although he could prescribe a medication that would prevent her from engaging in destructive sexual behavior. To say I was stunned would be a gross understatement. I asked a lot of questions, got the answers he could give, got a list of technical articles on the subject, and a 2-year supply of the right medication. Danica was very understanding during this time, and while Marina was in the hospital and the first 2 weeks at home, we only had one date. After Marina had been home for 2 weeks and we no longer needed a day caregiver for her, the doctor recognized that she was in good shape. When I got home from work on Friday afternoon, I wasn't greeted by 3 happy children as usual. Marina met me at the door in a silky short robe and 4-inch heels. I didn't even know she had a short robe or 4-inch heels. After I kissed her on the lips, I asked, "Where are the kids?" "They're bouncing between your and my parents' houses this weekend with grandparents instructed not to spoil them too much," she said with a devilish grin. "Oh, why?" I started to say before she captured a scalding hot kiss on my lips, the kind of kiss that was way beyond her usual level of passion. When we were finally able to breathe, she led me into the living room where the curtains were suddenly drawn and pushed me onto the couch. Marina threw off her robe, revealing her naked body underneath. "I've been waiting all day for you to come home, stud. I'm horny as hell," she whispered seductively as she leaned over, resting her breasts against my face, and undid my belt and then my zipper. I didn't realize she had words like stud, horny, or damn in her vocabulary. With my unconscious help, she quickly removed my pants and boxers. Although she didn't really have any technique, the fact that she did it made me horny almost instantly. It was the first non-missionary sex she and I had ever had. Not a single thought of Danica crossed my mind while I slept with Marina. Marina stood up, pushed me down on the couch so that I was lying flat, and then collapsed on top of me. She kissed me, murmuring, "Thank you for this." Did I hear that right? Was this really Marina or some cyborg-like thing set upon me by some alien to steal my life essence? I pinched her to make sure. "Don't pinch," Marina, or the cyborg, said, and I complied. If it was a cyborg, it was a cyborg with real breasts and moans. When we finally dealt with all the subterranean jolts, a naked Marina fed me a little dinner. "So that the blood would go to the right place rather than your stomach." She sat on my bare lap while we ate, and occasionally fed me a salad while I did the same for her. After dinner, she laughed when I sucked up to her from behind while she cleaned up the dishes. "No help from you," she added afterward. "All I need is your bald friend's help in our bedroom in a few minutes, and not with the dishes at all." She giggled as I carried her to our bedroom. When we got there, there were a few unlit candles, a couple scarves tied to the headboard of the bed, and a blindfold. With a wide smile on her face, she lit the candles and then running her finger across my chest, looking me in the eyes, she said in a lilac voice, "You would take advantage of a poor helpless girl by tying her hands to the headboard of the bed and blindfolding her, and then do your own thing to her, wouldn't you?" At that moment, I knew it was a dream or I'd been abducted by aliens, but I thought, what the hell, I'll be happy when I wake up. So I playfully threw her on the bed. Our 2 energetic sessions must have really knocked the energy out of us because we fell asleep. Long story short, by the time the grandparents brought our kids back Sunday night after dinner, my vision was blurred from sexual overload. I really have no idea how many orgasms each of us had. She certainly had more than I did. And I don't remember how many hours we spent in each other's arms or just caressing. I do know that there was more passion, tenderness, and body contact that weekend than in any 2 years of our married life combined. When Marina and I had another session of hot intercourse on Monday night, I knew I was at a crossroads. There was no way in hell I could satisfy both Danica and the new Marina. In my mind, I made a comparison. Danica was definitely prettier than Marina, and I loved her. However, there was never any realistic chance that we could be together for the long haul. The new Marina was just as passionate as Danica, something I would have found impossible just a few days ago. And while I didn't love her as much as Danica, I now had to admit that having sex with her was just as much fun as it was with Danica, despite the fact that she had a normal body, not the body of a goddess. Of course, the deciding factor was that Marina and I had 3 children, and there was no way in hell I was going to ruin my family or disappoint my parents. I met up with Danica on Thursday afternoon, after 2 more nights of monkey sex with Marina, and I was completely honest with her. We made love one more time, with tears in our eyes, and then broke up. Over the next year, the strangest thing happened. I fell in love with Marina. It was tenderness, hugs, body contact, her passion, her desire to give me pleasure. On a family vacation in the Bahamas 14 months after her accident, we now alternated between lovemaking and passionate animal sex. We were snuggled together, resting her head on my shoulder when I turned her face toward me. "Marina, I have a very strange feeling. I love you." Marina smiled at me. "I know it, even though you've never said it before. And you know what? I love you too." A strange idea occurred to me. We weren't in love when we got married. I think now that we're in love, we should get married again. "You mean a rededication ceremony?" "No. I want all traces of our arranged marriage to disappear. We start from scratch as a really, truly committed couple, honoring all of our vows, not just to please our parents. We're getting divorced and then remarried," I replied. Marina first looked at me as if I had two heads, but gradually her look turned into a smile. "If you can provide reasonable, rational details, and if you propose properly and buy me new rings, I might be able to be persuaded," she grinned. "Thank you," I smiled. Then I got serious. "There's one thing I have to tell you, something before I fell in love with you, one of the reasons I want to end our arranged marriage and start over. You were having an affair with Danica," she blurted out. A small tear appeared in one eye. I was stunned. We had been so careful. How, stammering, I muttered before she put me out of my misery. "You called her by her name a few times when you were doing it with me, when I was more of a blow-up doll than a sexual being. It's an unusual name. It was easy to recognize who she was. I was just coming back from getting my first look at her when I had my accident. I knew I couldn't compete with her in attractiveness and sex. I didn't think you would leave me, but I didn't think I could ever make you happy. I know you haven't seen her since I was in the hospital." A small mistake, but I wasn't going to correct it, especially since I really hadn't seen Danica in over a year. "And I know that you love me now, so let's start all over again." The love game that followed was the most emotionally satisfying of my life. I ran through the arrangements for how the divorce would proceed. We had a standard agreement that split everything 50-50ths, and we continued to live together and raise our children together without interpreting it as a reconciliation. The day the divorce was final, Thursday, I called Marina on the phone. "Hi, Marina, it's Bart. I was wondering if I could take you out to dinner tomorrow night." "That's nice of you to call, Bart. Let me check my calendar. Yes, I'm free. How should I dress?" "Please dress nice, and then we could go dancing." "That sounds wonderful." "I assume since you're divorced, you won't be wearing rings." "Of course not. I already took them off and will probably sell them this weekend. Am I going to see you tonight?" "No, I won't be in touch tonight. Can I pick you up tomorrow at 7 p.m., Marina?" "I'll be waiting." Marina grinned and disconnected. I rang the doorbell on Friday night. "Why are you ringing the doorbell?" my youngest asked, opening it. "Why? Because I would like to ask your mom out, that's why." "Is she here?" I asked with a smile. She laughed and then shouted, "Mom, Dad's acting weird. Come down the stairs." Our regular babysitter arrived just then and asked, "Why are you waiting on the porch, Mr. Tangier?" "I have a date with Miss Tangier," I replied calmly. She looked at me strangely, raised her eyebrows, and said, "Okay, I guess." Marina came downstairs a few minutes later. She looked really good. The makeup she'd gotten shortly after she was discharged from the hospital and her workouts 5 days a week at the health club were really having a big impact not only on her appearance, but also on her confidence. "Bart, didn't anyone invite you in?" she asked, suppressing a smile. "No, no one did, and I didn't want to be intrusive." I pulled a dozen roses from behind my back and said, "Though they pale in comparison to your beauty, I wanted you to have them before our date." "How sweet," she replied, and then she pulled my ear to her mouth and grinned. "You think you can get in my pants just by giving me flowers?" I only grinned. We had a great dinner. At the dance club, our dance lessons really paid off. And afterward, I took her to a hill overlooking the city. It was a beautiful starry night. We kissed and then turned around to look out over the metropolis. I made a quick phone call. I just said, "Now." She stared at the view, holding onto my hand. About 30 seconds later, a sign lit up on the other side of the river. There were hearts and flowers in the corners, but in the middle it said, "Marina, please make me the happiest man in the world and marry me." Marina had a stunned look on her face when she turned to me and saw that I was on one knee holding a diamond and emerald baguette engagement ring. Tears came to her eyes when she said, "Yes, I'm going to marry you, Bart." At which point I slipped the ring onto her finger. I hope we didn't give the babysitter too much of a scare when we came home completely disheveled, with lipstick on our faces. That wasn't the only place it was. Luckily, the babysitter was already 18 years old, so after I gave her $100, she drove home shaking her head. When we got to the bedroom, Marina whispered, "We can make love tomorrow. Right now I need you to blow my brains out." I think she did, because she was mumbling some nonsense while falling asleep on my shoulder. On Sunday, we went to the Garth house, having called all the family together beforehand. Everyone was there except for Marina's younger sister, who was in college. After lunch, I called everyone into the Garth's large living room. "I have an announcement that I hope will make you all happy," I began, and then held out my left hand, which Marina squeezed with her right. "Marina and I are engaged to be married," I continued, as a smiling Marina raised her left hand with her new engagement ring. Everyone laughed at first, but when they finally realized we weren't intending to joke, my mother said, "But Bart, you and Marina have already been married 11 years. "That's not quite right, Mom. We got divorced last Thursday and got engaged on Friday," I replied with a chuckle. There was some commotion, everyone was talking at the same time, and if they weren't talking, they looked shocked. Finally, I got everyone to calm down. "Some of you may not like to hear this, but you still need to know it. When we got married 11 years ago, it was an arranged marriage. Even though we were mostly compatible, we weren't in love with each other. Now Marina and I are in love with each other. We want to start over. This time, family pressure and convenience will not be the reason we get married. There will only be love." Marina and I kissed at this point. "And by the way, the wedding is in a month. And though it may be scandalous, we will live together until then." Although my parents were a little anxious, but when they talked to us and realized how joyful Marina and I were, everyone seemed happy. Although our second wedding wasn't as lavish as the first, and although the guests were basically just family members, we did everything right. In addition, we went on our second honeymoon. Unlike our first honeymoon, afterward we both walked around on crooked legs with chapped lips. In the years that followed, I discovered that being in love with my wife and children was heaven on earth.